In the sporting news, and here is the headline. Now, the I don't know if the guy who writes the article also does the headline, but it's Mike Moraitis. Mike Moraitis.
Moraitis. That was more inflammation?
Yeah, I don't know. But it says, take ex-NFL QB's comment on Raiders trading Davante Adams with a grain of salt.
So that means somebody over there is listening.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
grain of salt spot.
Somebody has to be.
Oh, the way that we said grain of salt over and over again, someone absolutely probably did that and chose those words specifically. So yesterday, what the grain of salt situation is that you said that you believe it may happen. It would be closer to August when it would going into or after they report for training camp. So
Yeah, I believe especially after watching the wide receiver documentary done by Peyton Manning, his Omaha Productions, and it's on Netflix, and I recommend it to everybody because it's great to see the personalities that these guys have. Every single one of them that is in this documentary do a great job, and Davante Adams is one of those guys. And in my eyes, you got an unhappy wide receiver in Las Vegas. And, that's like the last thing you want on your team is an unhappy wide receiver, especially one that's going to the Hall of Fame.
yeah.
And especially one that is incredibly gifted as Davante Adams is. And then, obviously we have Aaron Rodgers giving a backhanded off a crazy comment about I can't wait to play with Davante again.
Yep.
And then you have Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and this is like the Jets have done this before. We've been down this road before.
Oh, they did it with Aaron Rodgers before he came here.
That was a grain of salt spot too, by the way, with me.
Right.
So that happened, and that came to fruition. I do believe that where there's smoke, there is fire, and I do believe that Davante Adams will be a Jet. I really do. I don't see how it doesn't happen. Now, the question is going to be compensation going back to the Raiders and absorbing or either extending Davante Adams. But let's face it, folks, here's the reality for the Jets right now, and they know it because they have all said it, and even Aaron Rodgers has said it. If they don't win this year and something goes awry, guess what's happening? They're all getting canned.
That's right.
And I hate to say that because I don't like to talk about coaches or general managers, especially people that I like and respect in this league and appreciate the difficulties of what they're dealing with at times. I don't like to talk about their job losses. I've had friends who have been fired. Hell, I've been fired. I mean, it's no fun. But
they were given an opportunity. They were given years and years of an opportunity.
Your head coach has got a losing record, and I mean a significant losing record, and he knows that they have got to put every foot forward to try to get themselves into the playoffs. And listen, they have to win, I believe, the AFC East. So they're going to go all in. Now, I don't know what the ramifications of going all in and then not completing what you want to complete are going to be long term. But if I were them, I would be trying to add as many great football players as I possibly could right now, just so I can keep my job for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the guy who writes this article in the Sporting News, he puts his opinion at the end, and he goes, there is zero logic behind the idea that the Raiders would trade Adams before the start of the season unless he really, really wants out.
Oh, unless he really, really wants out. So that's his caveat. That's his, jumping off point where he could say, he must have really, really wanted out when the Jets do end up trading for him.
But he also says, but if that were the case, he'd likely be gone already.
Nah.
So,
hey, listen, the Raiders, what the Raiders would want to do, what I would do, if I were the Raiders in this situation, I'd let it kind of leak out that maybe the Jets are interested.
Yeah.
And see if I can get anybody else interested. The Dallas Cowboys interested. Let me see if I can get, I doubt that they would send him to the Chiefs, but, they'd probably want to see if an NFC team would be interested in him. Would the Atlanta Falcons be interested in him? Would the New Orleans Saints be interested in him?
I'm sure.
I mean, there's
a
lot of teams that, would they want to try to reunite him with Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints? You think Derek Carr's in there telling the Saints, look, if there's some way, somehow we can get Davante Adams here, we got to get him here.
Of course.
So I believe that the Jets want him. I believe that Aaron Rodgers wants him. I believe he wants to come here. But now the question is when are the Raiders going to pull the trigger? And I do believe that you have to kind of bide your time and you have to see if you can get a bidding war going. And then you got to do what's best for your organization. You can't just worry about what's good for the wide receiver here or the athlete here. You got to worry about what's good for your organization and Josh McDaniels. I don't necessarily know that he sounds all that happy. This is why these documentaries are amazing. Because if you sit and you listen and you watch, like Justin Jefferson seems to be really, really happy in Minnesota. Obviously, they gave him the big contract. His mom and dad seem to be happy. And at the moment, he's really happy.
He had a prolific quarterback from a statistical standpoint in Kirk Cousins from the second that he entered the league.
And so did Devontae Adams in Green Bay.
Yes, so we're going to see how happy Justin Jefferson is. Now, I know he's a guy who loves being good and loves chasing records and cares about winning as well. And he was given those opportunities with Kirk Cousins. Will he get those same opportunities with someone like Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy throwing to him? That remains to be seen. But
it sounds like Sam Darnold's going to be the guy, and J.J. McCarthy's going to end up sitting. The hope and dreams is as I will put it, redshirt J.J. McCarthy for a year, which would be a great thing. I mean, and that would be a smart thing. And maybe Kevin O'Connell can find some spark in Sam Darnold. He's not a terrible player, but, can he be a leader for 17 games?
I think he's going to play well. I'm not going to say that they're going to go to the playoffs, but I think that Sam Darnold will play pretty well, just based on the fact that they've got a lot of weapons around him. Now, unfortunately, Jordan Addison got himself in trouble, but you do have, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson. I mean,
I just have to say they are in a tough division. The Lions are going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers are going to be good.
Yep.
I believe that the Bears are going to be very good defensively, and they do have a plethora of people around Caleb Williams, assuming he gets his contract done anytime soon, hopefully sooner than later. I mean, look, he's Caleb Williams. The people that represent him probably see him in a certain light.
Isn't like a slotted thing?
Yes, it is a slotted thing, but there is the way to pay somebody, and there's always a negotiation, and his agents hear us comparing him to Patrick Mahomes coming out of college.
Yeah.
We're not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes right now, the Super Bowl champion. We're not talking about this is what he is. This is what many people believe he can become.
Yeah.
That's the comparison coming out of college, the same kind of athlete. So hopefully he'll get it done shortly, and I would imagine before training camp, because they're going to want him in there because he is anointed the starter already without a contract. But anyway, to go back to this wide receiver documentary on Netflix, I want to ask you this: take the quarterback position out of the realm.
Okay,
right? Let's just take the quarterback position.
And
I want you to think about every other position in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Externally, from a competitive standpoint, what positions are the most competitive amongst themselves? So you take these wide receivers. You got Deebo Samuel, you got Devontae Adams, you got Justin Jefferson. We got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is an amazing young man who's got an amazing story.
Yeah.
His father was, Mr. Universe, two-time Mr. Universe. His mother's German. He speaks fluent German. I mean, it's crazy. Is there another position that you can think of in the NFL that is as competitive externally with each other than the wide receiver position?
No, I would say the only thing that's close is probably corner. The corners are very similar to the wide receivers, but because stats are such a bigger deal with an offensive player than a defensive player, the nod has to go to wide receiver. But no, you're right. The answer is wide receiver. And those guys, man, they are stars, and they want the ball, and that's what makes that position interesting is someone has to get them the ball.
I mean, at the beginning of this wide receiver deal, Peyton Manning is like introducing like the quarterback's best friend. It's not the offensive line, it's the wide receiver, and then Randy Moss takes it from him.
Yeah.
And then your guy Randy Moss kind of like he does a little bit of the voiceover, on some of the highlights of players catching balls and him catching balls and talking about being a moving target after they catch it. It's just the mindset. Like you don't realize it. Like we all as players on the field all have a different set of circumstances that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And, the wide receiver's 30 yards away from the ball most of the time.
Right.
Except if you're Deebo Samuel, because you're coming behind the line of scrimmage, you're getting handed the ball a lot as a running back as well. But you're away. And then if you're George Kittle, who's an absolute maniac,
Yeah.
and a guy that you would love to have on your team. He's a tight end, and he gets hit from three different directions when he catches the football, but he also blocks, and he also pancakes people. And I think he gets more out of pancaking a guy than he does scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, so everybody has their issues that they have to deal with, but these wide receivers are just so entertaining and so funny, and just watching them go about their business and how competitive they are amongst each other, away from each other.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me, we were talking about grandchildren and how grandparents enjoy the grandchildren so much because the time they have with them is great, and then they go home with their parents. I almost feel like that's what's going on with you and these wide receivers. Like, you can watch these wide receivers of today.
I'm just glad I don't have to deal with them.
Right. Yes, exactly. You can enjoy it so much, but they're not on your team. You can shut the TV off.
But my era, and I think, I don't know, maybe Dan Marino, he played with Duper and Clayton, so those guys were probably pretty needy on the field. I didn't really play with needy players anywhere. I mean, I played with, Eddie Brown, Chris Collinsworth, Tim McGee, Rob Moore. I played with a bunch of other guys that were probably lesser known, but still could play. But nobody ever demanded the ball, except for maybe Johnny Mitchell a little bit. But then I had to explain to him why I wasn't throwing it to him.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't where I thought he was going to be.
Right, which is a problem.
Yes.